Known for his cheeky demeanour, good-natured hijinks around the paddock, and interesting taste in drinking vessels, Daniel Ricciardo is one of the best-liked drivers on the current roster. Unfortunately, in 2022, this just means that there are more disappointed fans after each no-points finish. With the disappointing and fairly disastrous 2022 season halfway through, and Ricciardo currently being in 12th in the standings with a whopping 17 points, we need to take a look at his past and future in the sport and ask ourselves if the Honey Badger is really good enough for F1. To more experienced fans, Ricciardo needs no introduction, but to the newer crowd, it may come as a surprise that he's been racing for a decade now. In fact, he's the 5th most experienced driver on the current grid after Alonso, Hamilton, Vettel, and Perez, who beats him by half a season. If racing driver years work like dog years, he's now comfortably in the midlife territory, which might explain his crisis from a few years ago, but more on that later. Like literally everyone else on the grid, Ricciardo got his start in karting, and after bouncing around in different regional series, he made a name for himself in Formula 3 and the Formula Renault series in the late 2000s. After being a member of the Red Bull Junior team since 2008, Ricciardo was promoted to Toro Rosso's test and reserve driver in 2011. He made his F1 debut at the 2011 British Grand Prix, where he replaced Noreen Karthikeyan as a driver for the now defunct HRT halfway through the season. Even as a rookie in reserve, Ricciardo showed great speed and promise, so it was only a matter of time before he was signed to Toro Rosso for real. And so, the 2012 season saw the birth of Daniel Ricciardo, the F1 pilot. Not quite the Honey Badger yet, he nevertheless had a semi-decent first year, finishing 18th overall, but collecting points here and there, including his very first points at his home in the Grand Prix of Australia. However, he was shadowed by his teammate Jean-Eric Vergne, who managed to finish 17th in the standings. Toro Rosso retained the dream team of Ricciardo and Vergne for the 2013 season, and I do use dream team in the loosest possible sense here. And whilst there didn't seem to be any outright animosity between the teammates, no more than any average teammate rivalry calls for, Vergne has admitted on a podcast of Beyond the Grid that he suffered from comparisons to Ricciardo, at least within the team. Vergne, who was used to winning and had a hard time understanding why the team would celebrate his 8th place finish, developed a reputation for moodiness, while Ricciardo was his sunny self no matter where he finished, which endeared him to the team, the fans, and your mother probably. However, that sunny disposition was put to the test in 2013. His second season in Toro Rosso did not start well for Ricciardo, which might actually be an understatement. After an exhaust-related retirement in Australia, he had another exhaust-related retirement in Malaysia. Want to guess what happened during the 3rd round in China? If you guessed exhaust-related retirement, you're wrong. Our boy's luck finally turned, and not only did he finish the race, and not only did he finish the points, he finished 7th, his career best at the time. But it wasn't all smooth sailing from there. Ricciardo suffered a few more retirements and definitely didn't finish in the points every time. But by the end of the season, he managed to collect 20 points, come 14th in the championship ahead of Vergne, and most importantly, bag a seat at Red Bull for the 2014 season. If 2012 saw the birth of Ricciardo, the F1 driver, then 2014 saw the birth of the Honey Badger. Ricciardo had used the Honey Badger motif on his helmet whilst he was driving for Toro Rosso, but it was more akin to a vision board then, a dream of what he could become in the future, as the car and the team weren't exactly what you would call competitive. In 2014, armed with a drivable car and the reigning world champion Sebastian Vettel for a teammate, Ricciardo quickly set about proving himself worthy of the nickname. The start of the season saw Ricciardo disqualified at his home Grand Prix due to technical infringements after finishing 2nd in the race, followed by a DNF in Malaysia. But despite another disappointing season start, Ricciardo managed to get his stuff together and nab several podiums, including his first race win in Canada. He would collect 2 more wins that season and finish 3rd in the championship. To quote Red in Shawshank Redemption, hope is a dangerous thing to have, especially for Ricciardo fans, because the 2015 season that saw him paired with everyone's favourite rookie Daniil Kvyat didn't go well for Daniel. The Renault-powered car refused to cooperate, and Ricciardo finished the season with only 2 podiums, no wins, and came 8th overall, with Kvyat finishing the season ahead of him in 7th. In 2016, Red Bull was still using a Renault engine, now branded as Tag Heuer, which is much like taking the cheapest Casio watch and slapping, well, a Tag Heuer logo on it. Of course, the key difference in this comparison is that Casio actually makes good watches. But worry not, friends, because redemption is coming. After Kvyat torpedoed Vettel at the Russian Grand Prix, Red Bull pulled a classic switcheroo and sent Kvyat back to Toro Rosso, promoting Max Verstappen to Red Bull, and the rest, as they say, is history. Or it would be if this video was about Max, which it isn't. Back to Ricciardo. With Verstappen and Ricciardo as teammates, Red Bull had struck marketing gold, and the iconic comedy duo to rival Laurel Hardy or Fry and Laurie was born. And the race results weren't bad either. Ricciardo in particular had a good run that year with 8 podiums, 1 win, and another 3rd place in a championship. The German Grand Prix that year also gave us the iconic shoey. So all in all, a good year for Ricciardo and his fans. In 2017, Ricciardo repeated his stats of 8 podiums and 1 win, because he's nothing if not consistent in all the wrong ways, and not consistent at all in the right ones, finishing 5th overall with Verstappen hot on his heels in 6th. Which brings us to 2018 and the beginning of the end. It definitely wasn't a disastrous year for Ricciardo, but with 8 retirements out of 21 races, it wasn't exactly good either. Verstappen was still putting pressure on him on and off track, and he only managed 2 podium finishes. Still, living up to the Honey Badger name, those 2 podium finishes were wins, including the absolutely iconic Monaco 2018. Unfortunately, that would be his last win until Italy 2021. Remember that midlife crisis I mentioned earlier? Yep, it's time for Ricciardo to move to Renault in 2019 for no discernible reason. Truly an unsolved mystery to rival the Dyatlov Pass incident. Ricciardo's move shocked fans, pundits, and Christian Horner himself, stirring rumours that not all was well in the Red Bull garage. At the time, Ricciardo had given a fairly general reasoning for his move, saying that it was probably one of the most difficult decisions to make in my career so far, but I thought it was time for me to take on a fresh and new challenge. Enough time has passed since the move, and with the power of hindsight, we know that the move to Renault was the wrong one. With only 2 podiums and no wins to show for his 2 years with the French team, Ricciardo had gambled and lost. Elaborating on the move in 2020, he stated that he didn't find the stability he needed in Red Bull. He said in an interview, "In 2019, my engineer Simon, who I really built a good relationship, wasn't going to be there in 2019, so I knew I was going to lose him if I stayed, and they were going to Honda. There were a lot of things that gave me a little bit of discomfort or a lack of stability." You could argue that jumping a perfectly fine cruise ship only to land in a sinking dinghy wasn't the best way to seek stability, but at least he ventured out of his comfort zone and managed to coax some decent results out of the unreliable Renault. All in all, while the 2019 season was a minor disaster, the 2020 season didn't look too bad for Ricciardo, with 2 podiums and the overall 5th place in the championship. Things were starting to look up for Ricciardo, which can only mean one thing: another move, this time to McLaren. Unlike the move to Renault, the McLaren contract was seen as a definite step in the right direction for Ricciardo. The future partnership with the aspiring comedian and Twitch streamer Lando Norris also gave the fans a lot to talk about, and many hoped that McLaren would give Ricciardo a chance to shine both on and off the track. Alas, it was not meant to be. With only 1 podium to Norris's 4 and an 8th place in the championship, 2 places behind his less experienced teammate, Ricciardo did not get a good start in McLaren in 2021. Still, he had his moments. His only podium in Italy was his first win since 2018 and McLaren's first since 2012. For most of the season, however, he lagged behind Norris, much to the annoyance of everyone, including Zach Brown, who was quoted ahead of Silverstone 2021 saying, "Daniel knows where he needs to improve, so there's no excuses, just hard work ahead of us, and I hope he gets on top of it because we need 2 cars constantly in the front if we're going to hold on to a 3rd in the championship." This annoyance carried on over into the current season. With the season only halfway through, Norris has outqualified Ricciardo in every single race and finished ahead of him in all but 3. Ricciardo's failure to show results has prompted Brown to make a comment about the unmet expectations and a hint at some kind of performance clause in Ricciardo's contract. "My skin is tanned, beautiful, and also thick," Ricciardo stated in response, before admitting that he agrees with Zach Brown. The disappointing results aren't all Ricciardo's fault though, and tensions must be running high in the McLaren garage as it is. From the pre-season testing, the car has been plagued by problems, first with the brakes, then with the lack of downforce and pace. So pretty much everything. After the disaster that was the Canadian Grand Prix, even the team principal Andreas Seld had to admit it has been a tough week in general, with the cars lacking pace, having reliability issues, and suffering from operational issues with the double shuffle pit stop. We didn't give Lando or Daniel the package they deserve today, so we have to offer them an apology. Although the team has continued working on the car, the problems continue, with Ricciardo's free practices in Austria ruined by a rear wing issue, and while Norris was left battling another brake problem. The good news is that Ricciardo seems to have a seat in McLaren for 2023 after all, with Brown confirming that they are committed to keeping Ricciardo on. But it's not impossible that with the current season still underway and things looking bleak for Danny Ricciardo, McLaren might want to break up sooner rather than later. They're already eyeing up new talent, and Brown has been making friends with IndyCar's Pato O'Ward and Colton Herta, signing the latter to McLaren as a test driver in 2022. All of this begs the question, even if Ricciardo has got a seat in McLaren next year, should he be in F1? Is he really good enough? Even with his patchy results and funky career moves, the answer is yes. Ricciardo really lives up to that honey badger name. As the last of the late breakers, he has proven time and time again that he can overtake half the grid if he has to, and he'll do it safely and with style. Commenting on Verstappen's well-documented aggression on the track, former world champion Damien Hill said, "We want people to overtake. We want brave moves. Ricciardo and Alonso are some of the bravest overtakers in the sport, and they don't crash into people." Going from P16 to P9 in Portugal 2021, from P16 to P7 in Japan 2019, and from P19 to P5 in Silverstone 2017 shows that Ricciardo is a great driver with more than enough talent to be in F1. And Ricciardo is not just a good driver, he's good compared to the other drivers. Let's start with a fair comparison to his contemporary Sergio Perez. They have been racing for pretty much the same time, and Ricciardo has more Grand Prix wins, podiums, poles, and fastest laps than Checo. That may not last for long, but he does. And Daniel is definitely a better driver than the likes of Nicholas Latifi, Kevin Magnussen, and Pierre Gasly. While Latifi has managed to accidentally finish in the top 10 a couple of times in previous years, he's still a pointless driver and pointless in 2022. This means that his seat in Williams may be in danger, and he knows it. And just how bad do you have to be sacked from the current Williams team? Magnussen, who's currently ahead of Ricciardo in the standings, has shown some decent results over the years, but his aggressive and rough driving style rarely pays off. And Gasly has 1 win and 3 podiums in total. He's been showing some pretty decent results during his years in AlphaTauri, but he's not the overtaker Ricciardo is. Considering that he's been moving from team to team and having to adjust to new cars that have turned out to be unreliable in some way, Ricciardo has managed to pull off some great drives. But with the current standings looking like he might be in for his first championship finish out of the top 10 since 2013, Ricciardo has got to put his best foot forward and prove that he still belongs on the grid, which is something he hasn't had to do since his Toro Rosso days. With the contract negotiations coming up later in the season, and the McLaren seat still somewhat uncertain for 2023, there is a chance that it's Ricciardo's last season with the team. But Zach Brown assures of the contrary. We can hold on some hope that we'll see more of the Honey Badger, and more importantly, that we'll see more of what he's really capable of. But let me know in the comments down below whether you agree with my opinion, whether you think differently. Should he be out of the sport now? Was he ever good enough? Let me know. But with that said, I will see you next time.